Turkey controls the gateway between Europe and Asia, commands NATO's second-largest army, and holds the keys to the Black Sea. Yet right now, it's systematically betraying every alliance it's ever made. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Turkey isn't confused about its loyalties. It's weaponizing betrayal as national policy, and both East and West are paying the price. Think about this. Turkey is simultaneously selling weapons to Ukraine that destroy Russian tanks while helping Russia dodge Western sanctions. It's a NATO member actively pursuing membership in BRICS, the very bloc designed to counter Western dominance. It blocked Sweden and Finland from joining NATO for 18 months during the Ukraine crisis, then traded its approval for American fighter jets worth $23 billion. This isn't diplomatic confusion. This is calculated treachery. And the most disturbing part? It's working. Turkey has discovered that in a fracturing world order, betrayal pays better than loyalty ever did. I'm James Whitfield from Faultline Economics. While others chase headlines, we examine the systems that actually shape history, geography, demographics, and economic fundamentals. Today, we're analyzing Turkey's calculated double cross. This is strategic clarity in a complex world. Let's turn to the strategic map. Turkey sits at the fulcrum of global power. To its north, Russia, historically its greatest threat, and now its energy supplier. To its west, NATO allies who've guaranteed its security for 7 decades. To its south and east, a Middle East in perpetual crisis. This isn't just geography, it's destiny. Since joining NATO in 1952, Turkey has been the alliance's southeastern anchor. It hosts American nuclear weapons at Incirlik Air Base, operates critical radar systems for NATO's missile defense, and commands the straits that control all naval access to the Black Sea. For decades, this arrangement worked. Turkey got security, NATO got a bulwark against Soviet expansion, but something fundamental shifted. Today, Turkey simultaneously arms Ukraine with drones that devastate Russian forces while helping Russia evade Western sanctions. It blocks NATO expansion for 18 months, then trades its approval for American fighter jets. It's a NATO member actively courting BRICS membership, seeking to join the very bloc designed to counter Western dominance. The question isn't whether Turkey is betraying its allies. The question is, how did betrayal become Ankara's grand strategy? Factor 1. Geographic monopoly. The straits as leverage. Geography is Turkey's ultimate trump card. The Montreux Convention of 1936 grants Turkey absolute control over the straits. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Turkey invoked Article 19, closing the straits to all warships, both Russian and NATO. Let me show you exactly what I mean. By preventing Russian naval reinforcements from entering the Black Sea, Turkey helped Ukraine. But by also warning NATO ships away, it ensured Russia faced no additional naval pressure. This wasn't neutrality, it was calculated manipulation of both sides. The data doesn't lie. Turkey controls passage for 48,000 vessels annually through these waters. Every grain shipment from Ukraine, every Russian naval movement, every NATO surveillance mission, all exist at Turkey's discretion. This geographic monopoly makes Turkey simultaneously indispensable and unaccountable to both power blocs. Factor 2. Economic opportunism. The sanctions backdoor. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When the West imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia in 2022, Turkey didn't just refuse to participate, it became Moscow's economic lifeline. Trade between Turkey and Russia surged from $34 billion to over $55 billion. Turkish imports of Russian gold increased by 900%. Mysterious shipments of Western technology began flowing through Istanbul to Moscow. Beyond the headlines, there are systems. Turkey hosts thousands of Russian companies that relocated after sanctions hit. Its banks process transactions that Western institutions won't touch. The US, Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, officially listed Turkey as helping Russia circumvent sanctions. Yet NATO can't afford to lose Turkey, so the betrayal continues with impunity. But there's something else at play here. Russia's Rosatom is building Turkey's first nuclear power plant at Akuyu, a $25 billion project that will give Moscow control over critical Turkish infrastructure for 60 years. The Turk Stream pipeline pumps Russian gas directly to Turkey, making Ankara dependent on the very nation NATO exists to contain. This economic entanglement isn't accidental. It's architectural. Turkey has created deliberate dependencies that make choosing sides economically catastrophic. If you find this analysis valuable, subscribe to Faultline Economics. We dive deep like this every week. Factor 3. Defense autonomy, the drone revolution. This changes the entire equation. Turkey has become the world's largest military drone exporter, capturing 65% of the global market since 2018. Its Bayraktar drones proved devastatingly effective in Ukraine, Libya, and Azerbaijan. But here's what they won't tell you. This isn't just about weapon sales. Every drone Turkey exports creates a new dependency relationship. Ukraine needs Turkish drones to survive. Azerbaijan used them to reclaim Nagorno-Karabakh. Ethiopia deployed them in its civil war. 35 countries now depend on Turkish military technology. Technology that comes without the political strings attached to American or European weapons. Turkey's defense exports hit $7.1 billion in 2024. It's selling corvettes to Pakistan, attack helicopters to the Philippines, and missile systems across Africa. This isn't just commerce. It's the construction of an alternative security architecture that operates outside NATO's framework, one where Turkey, not Washington or Brussels, calls the shots. But all of this hinges on one deciding factor: Western paralysis. Turkey has calculated, correctly, that it's too valuable to punish and too dangerous to expel. NATO needs those bases. Europe needs those refugee controls. The West needs someone who can talk to Russia. This isn't strength. It's addiction. And Turkey is the dealer, selling access to all sides while belonging to none. Now, let's connect the dots. What do you think is the most critical risk in Turkey's strategy? Will geographic advantage always trump alliance betrayal? Drop your analysis in the comments. I read every strategic insight you share. Here's where it all comes together. Turkey isn't just hedging its bets. It's actively building leverage through controlled crisis. When Finland and Sweden sought NATO membership after Russia's invasion, Turkey blocked them for 18 months. The price for approval? American F-16 fighters, an end to Nordic support for Kurdish groups, and lifted arms embargoes. This wasn't diplomacy. It was hostage-taking within an alliance. The pattern is unmistakable. Create a crisis. Position yourself as the only solution. Extract maximum payment. Repeat. And this strategy works precisely because Turkey understands something fundamental about geography and power. Something Robert Kaplan explores brilliantly in The Revenge of Geography. Physical terrain doesn't just shape borders. It determines political destiny. Turkey's control of the straits isn't just a geographic fact. It's the foundation of their entire betrayal strategy. If you want to truly understand how geography becomes leverage, Kaplan's analysis is essential reading. You can get it free with an Audible trial, link below. This geographic determinism extends beyond Turkey. Our analysis of Russia's geographic prison, which you'll find in the card on screen, reveals how the Black Sea dynamics we're discussing today trap Moscow in an even larger strategic cage. Turkey holds the keys to that prison, and they're selling access to the highest bidder. So, what does this mean for the global balance of power in 2050? If current trends continue, by 2050 we'll see a fundamentally different Turkey, neither Western nor Eastern, but something unprecedented. A middle power that's mastered the art of strategic betrayal. Turkey will likely achieve full defense autonomy, becoming a major arms exporter rivaling traditional powers. Its energy infrastructure will be split between Russian, Chinese, and renewable sources, preventing any single dependency. Most critically, it may anchor a new, non-aligned bloc of middle powers that refuse to choose sides in the emerging Cold War between America and China. But here's the risk. Betrayal as strategy only works when there are multiple sides to play. If the world splits into rigid blocks, Turkey's room for maneuver vanishes. The very ambiguity it's weaponized becomes its greatest vulnerability. The future isn't written, but the blueprint is there for those who know how to read it. Turkey has chosen the most dangerous path available, betraying everyone while remaining indispensable to all. It's a high-wire act that assumes the wire will never snap. If you gain something from this analysis, subscribe to Faultline Economics and give this video a like. We're building more content like this every week. And as always, stay strategic.